UK. The war in Syria has been going on for over 6 years, and the advance of so-called Islamic State in Syria and Iraq has had major implications here in the UK. But now that IS is being driven out, we've been asking two experts what happens next. Well, with many other factions still fighting, it seems defeating IS certainly isn't the end of the problem. Here's Emma Vardy.
Two key cities, once under Islamic State control. Now Mosul in Iraq has been liberated, and Raqqa in Syria is also expected soon to be freed. We've reached a significant step in the dismantling of the so-called IS caliphate. But what comes next?
The Syrian conflict is an alphabet soup of different groups with different beliefs, different aims, objectives, and alliances as well. Just because one element might start to be resolved or might seem to be diminishing, that doesn't mean we're anywhere near fixing this mess. There are so many things going on, and they're all interlinked.
It's been 6.5 years of war. There are multiple external influencers and actors and powers getting involved, carving off bits of territory, squaring off against each other, backing different proxy groups. There are different rules and different sets of governments being put up in place of the regime of Bashar al-Assad that aren't going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Broadly speaking, the parts of Syria shown here in red are under the control of the government forces of President Assad. In green are areas dominated by a number of different anti-government rebel factions who oppose the Assad regime. And in the north, a large area known as Rojava in yellow is under the control of the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, who've been leading the fight to push back IS, along with support of airstrikes from the US-led coalition.
There is not one side aligned to another, it's shifting alliances. So there's a lot to play for still. And where the United States particular is being involved is in this rollback of Islamic State territory. And the key there is twofold. One is, of course, to try and defeat extremist Sunni actors, but the second one is to stop the regime of Bashar al-Assad rolling back into town.
IS, out in the east, is in retreat and has now lost more than half the territory it once held. But some warn, although IS may be defeated militarily in terms of its control of certain areas, the group could continue to live on in other ways.
In my opinion, we're not even seeing the fall of ISIS. We're seeing the pushback of one aspect of what ISIS is. But in the way we are diminishing its statehood presence, its claims to statehood, we're not doing anything to resolve the fact it remains an insurgency, it remains a terrorist movement, and in fact, all of the underlying structural problems of Syrian society and of Iraqi society that allowed and led to the creation of all of this mess in the first place, all still remain.
Elsewhere, other fault lines are becoming more prominent. In the north, the Kurds are under attack at the hands of their long-standing enemy, Turkey, and this is where it gets complicated. America is arming the Syrian Kurds to help them fight IS, even though Turkey is America's main NATO ally in the region.
You've got the counter-ISIS coalition going this way and the interests of Turkey going that way, and of course they are beginning to clash. And what you've had, of course, is this sort of piecemeal arrangement whereby Turkey has taken a little bit of territory in the north of the country to prevent the creation of a contiguous Kurdish bloc. But they're also very frustrated about the fact that the Kurds are now becoming one of the biggest single actors in Syria. They're being empowered in a way which will give them some kind of political strength after the conflict is gone.
So far, British MPs have voted not to put boots on the ground in Syria, but for the UK to be part of the coalition which carries out airstrikes against IS. So what of the UK's role going forward?
I think where you will see more UK activity as at a time when people sit down and go, it's time to talk. Let's go to Geneva, let's try work out a track whereby we can have the regime, we can have the Kurds, we can have the opposition in their various different stripes, actually having a realistic discussion about where we go from here. The United Kingdom can have some influence there.
The message really has to be, this is a war of decades and will probably live with us in some form the rest of our lives.
A major concern will be whether areas of Syria and Iraq will remain a breeding ground for potential terrorists, even after the fall of so-called Islamic State.
Emma Vardy.